This is our second year of celebrating International Paramedics Day in 2023. And what we learnt last year was just how proud everyone was that took part right across the world in celebrating being a paramedic. And this is our way of continuing that journey and continuing to offer that space to celebrate what paramedics do this year, which is our theme. The paramedic profession is really only about 50 years old in the UK, and what we've seen is people are working in really diverse areas. You find paramedics working still traditionally in the ambulance sector and responding to those 999 and urgent calls. And what you see is paramedics who are working in education, in research, in leadership, on oil rigs, in the military, overseas. Some paramedics work in primary or urgent care settings. And we've certainly seen the diversification of the profession over the last 5 years. And one of those examples is through the medical team at Silverstone, showing just exactly what they can do to support sports people who are at the top of their game doing high risk sports for our entertainment, but with a really serious risk underneath.
Initially, I was a firefighter up in Norfolk. We started doing lots of trauma care within the fire service, and then it's just developed from there. I joined East of England Ambulance Service as a technician, then qualified as a paramedic, and from then working as a critical care paramedic for all 3 air ambulances in the East of England. I then started picking up management roles in Norfolk and across Cambridgeshire as a team leader. And that sort of varied my role in more leadership management, hospital management, and some scene management stuff, which I found really, really interesting. I'd always been interested in motorsport, and I just needed a new challenge. This was the perfect opportunity, really, to come and actually run a med centre and have that involvement in not only leading a team, still delivering clinical care, but actually guiding our service to further improvement. Moving across from the NHS into what is essentially a bit more of a corporate world. The healthcare and the medicine doesn't change so much, but running a medical centre that's CQC registered, that holds a training certificate, it certainly keeps me busy. On our contractor pool here at Silverstone, we have around 100 staff within the medical team, and they range from an emergency care assistant in the ambulance service right the way through to a professor of neurosurgery and pretty much every clinical grade in between. We have a lot of autonomy across the site to look at best practice, to influence change, and to really develop our emergency care and our emergency response as a team across the site. I think the profession has developed so much that there are a huge amount of areas of opportunity now for paramedics, which is amazing. I've got friends and colleagues that work here with me. They work all around the world covering motorsport. The paramedics that we have on our team will crew our fast intervention vehicles. We're a paramedic-led service, midweek, Monday to Friday. At the weekends, those cars are crewed alongside a doctor to provide that physician-paramedic response. And then they work alongside ECAs and technicians to provide an ambulance response. This weekend, our medical team are on site providing cover on the national circuit for Motorsport Vision Racing. We also have the Mercedes AMG Petronas F1 team on the international circuit.
To all of the paramedics, I'd just like to say a huge thank you for everything you do for us and this sport. It definitely wouldn't be able to happen if it wasn't for you and the quick response that everybody is on hand to give whenever needed. So once again, thank you so much.
The footfall through the site Grand Prix weekend is that of a small town. So we essentially deal with lots of ongoing medical complaints, slips, trips, falls. We have around 110 clinical staff for the track, and we have anything up to 200 for the crowd.
It's quite interesting because it's not just about the car racing, because you could be called to go to the crowd. So from that perspective, it's actually quite exciting, and it's a very different day. There are days when we sit here and don't see anything, but then on days you can come here and you could be sitting here thinking, yeah, nothing's going to happen today, and all of a sudden the whole thing changes.
Last year we had quite a high-profile incident at the Grand Prix. We saw the incident on the live feed that we were watching, and then we heard the deployment of the medical and rescue resources to the scene. We quickly get some feedback from those attending.
It will always be the FIA doctor being responded first, but because there were other cars involved, he was dealing with them. At this point, the car had hit the fence and it had actually rolled back onto the tyres, so we couldn't see the driver at that point. What we wanted to establish was whether he was conscious or not. So I asked two of the marshals if they could push the car, were they able to hold it at that angle, and they assured me they could. So we actually rolled it over, and at that point I actually could see Joe and I spoke to him. He gave me the thumbs up and he said, yeah, I'm all right.
We have two full trauma teams in the medical centre. We knew we'd be receiving 2 drivers for assessment at least. We obviously flew Alex Albon out for further assessment due to the high G impact that he had with the pit wall. Joe, we sat chatting with, and it was quite interesting to hear that it was all a bit of a blur for him, but he was essentially uninjured and sat chatting as if what had happened hadn't happened.
I grew up in South Africa. I started my career in the emergency services, actually working on the beach as a professional lifeguard. They needed somebody to go and do an advanced first aid course. So I did the ambulance technician course, working my way up to intermediate life support level. I came over here for a year's holiday and then ended up staying and decided I'd go back into the ambulance service.
I then went on to helicopter emergency medical services for about 20 years.
In 2015, unfortunately, I had a heart attack, which made me step back and think about my life a little bit. So I decided that I would go into teaching, and I taught at Northampton University on the Paramedics Science degree for 3 years. While I was at the university, I decided that I'd like to come and do some shifts here. That's led me to be working here for at least the last 5 years. I'm self-employed, I'm my own boss, I can decide when I want to work and when I don't want to work. Even though Chris doesn't like that. The thing I love most about the job is actually the camaraderie within the teams, and besides that, you get to come to all the major events and you get to see stuff that as a member of the public you'll never get to see. So from that side of it, it is good. Traveling around is great as well. We've gone to places like Monaco, Rome, Berlin. I've been involved in a bit of off-road stuff as well, which is really exciting. There's a lot of scope out there and a lot of traveling, which is really nice.
International Paramedics Day is a great platform for us, just to showcase what we're doing in our area of expertise in motorsport. But across the world, I think paramedics are quite a rare breed. We have to deal with an awful lot of stuff as the profession develops. I think it's great that we've got an opportunity to showcase what we do, and I think it's something that we should be proud of. So yeah, we absolutely support International Paramedics Day.
Just before I left South Africa in 1994, I went to the second biggest train crash in the history of South Africa, and we were the second vehicle on scene. And that day, it certainly made me aware that the role that we have is just so important. And the training that we had just kicked in. It was a mass casualty incident. I've been doing this for 34 years, and that day I will never forget. I can remember it like yesterday. You know, it was a tragic day, but I learned so much that day, not just about the medical side, but about myself, about seeing how other people work and seeing how major trauma and stressful situations affect people in different ways. You make decisions in those days that you've got to live with for the rest of your life. And yeah, you know, you do go away and think about it afterwards, definitely, you know, because those decisions have changed not only your life, but other people's lives as well.
This International Paramedics Day is another way to celebrate our great colleagues who are working across the globe in doing a fantastic job wherever they're working. Whilst this is International Paramedics Day, we recognise those community first responders, that army of volunteers in the UK who work to support the ambulance sector and many events. And we also recognise our third sector colleagues for St John Ambulance or British Red Cross and organisations such as those who provide great support. And our emergency medical technicians and emergency care assistants or emergency care support workers, we do celebrate with you on this day.